Welcome to episode 95 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Macklin Celebrini's debut game last night against the St. Louis Blues. And he recorded 2 points, a goal and an assist, his first NHL goal. Also became the youngest player to record 2 points in the first period. And the last youngest player was Shane Doan. And now Macklin Celebrini makes that historic mark. So he had a really good game yesterday. In terms of looking at his overall play, defensively, he's still well rounded. And the thing is with his defensive plays, you can have well roundedness at the junior age, but even when you get to the NHL level, you aren't necessarily guaranteed to be well rounded right away because it might take time to adapt defensively because it's a completely different tier and system compared to junior hockey. And even when you're playing in the NCAA, you're playing essentially U25. Junior, you're playing U20. The NHL, you're playing U40 essentially. So it's a big step up. And while you're going to get some defensive details out of him, you want to rely on him mostly for his offense, especially in year one, his rookie season. You don't necessarily want to rely so much on him defensively. You want to be able to have that impact player up front and at the center position. So with celebrating 2 points first game, he looked really good overall, and he looked really good in transition without the puck and with the puck. He had on his sequence leading up to his goal. I wrote about it today. It was something where he lurked away inside the neutral zone in his positioning. So that way, when he received the puck on the weak side pass from one of his teammates, he was able to catch the puck and then he turned it into a one-on-one entry scenario. And then he was able to maneuver, do a spinorama move, and then be able to try and make a backhand pass to the interior to William Eklund. And it ended up going off the St. Louis Blues defenseman's skate. So it was a really unique goal for him, but at the same time, he looked really good. His playmaking skills were really standing out. His one-on-one manipulation skills were a little inconsistent, but that's totally okay because as long as you're showing high-end flair of skill, that's a really good sign, even if it's an inconsistent showing, because sooner rather than later, you could still translate that to more consistency over time. So with Celebrini, it's more of a circumstance where he's trying to learn the game, learn the league, and learn the style of play. And in year one, it might take a little adaptation to the start, like with Connor Bedard last year. But at the same time, once he gets through the middle portion of the season and towards the end of the season, you could really see him ramp up from there. It's going to be really interesting to see how his season plays out because building off a strong first game. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some different growing points for him and different maturation points for him to learn. But it's really exciting to see what San Jose has in store for their system, their future, and bringing in the free agent additions, bringing in some of the young guys, Celebrini and Will Smith being two notable ones, and they both made their debut in the same game yesterday and had their rookie lap. And you have William Eklund, who's part of the young core there. You have some of the veterans getting filtered out slowly. And I would imagine over time, within the next 2, 3 years, even more of those veterans are going to get filtered out. Maybe within the next year, because who knows what happens with Logan Couture moving forward, depending on his injury status. But in terms of the Sharks and Celebrini in and of itself, a guy who can very well become their first line center as soon as this season and make an immediate impact. And that actually might be a benefit to Couture because it might be something in a situation where Couture might benefit from less ice time and might benefit from a second line role or a third line role. Not only to get his game going again, but to really allow him to have less pressure on himself. And there could be more pressure on some of the other players. So that could actually help Couture in a sense. But going back to Celebrini in his debut game, what stood out the most in terms of his goal scoring is his wrist shot and his one timer. And you can put him on the power play, you can put him on the flank, and he can rip it. He can absolutely rip it from there. And that's one of his biggest strong points when it comes to his play is his ability to shoot from the flanks and shoot with volume, shoot with accuracy, and shoot with power. He's done this for such a long time, even dating back to his Shattuck days, where he could shoot so effortlessly coming off the rush and coming down the wing and from a standstill inside the offensive zone using the flanks. So he's a guy that you want to shoot and you want to have shooting as much as possible because he's a volume shooter, but also a quality shooter. He tries to shoot to score. That's the biggest impactful thing when it comes to him. His playmaking, he stands out because he can make small area sequences look easy and he makes small area passes look easy. It's not easy at all to do. And for some players, it's so much more difficult. But with Celebrini, he's a guy that makes those small plays so effortlessly. And that's why you can play him on a line, say, with guys like Will Smith or faster paced wingers like a Fabian Zetterlund or someone like that because he can process the game so fast with his hockey sense. And I wouldn't necessarily argue he's the most dynamic of skaters. I would say, in terms of mechanical components, his edge work is the most standout when it comes to his skating and how he uses his edges to be able to slice through defenders and get around pressure. That's what I noticed from him yesterday a lot is he can slice and dice guys with his edges. That's his most notable quality within his skating. And then his footwork in and of itself, again, not necessarily an extremely dynamic skater per se, but he plays with tempo in his edges and how he's able to utilize that. And he was showing that yesterday. He was playing on his toes. He was very active with how he's being able to use his feet, and he's very active at being able to use his feet, not only in D zone situations, but O zone, transition, those type of things. So he was standing out all across the board. He was really good, and it's a good building block and a good starting point for him to be able to have 2 points in his first game, get that game over with and done, and be able to move on and focus on some other things and focus on the next stages of the season. So Celebrini's a guy, obviously a rookie to watch this year, very much in Calder contention. There's a really high end Calder race this year. It could be anybody. There's a lot of different forwards in that mix and some defensemen, but a lot of different forwards on different teams in that Calder mix, including Celebrini. So he could make his run at it and become a very dynamic player down the stretch for San Jose as well.